In this video, I'm going to be sharing all of my fun and useful tips for Live2D Cubism, going over tips for rigging, animation, and tips to improve your mindset and workflow. Also, there's sort of a special announcement in this video, so be on the lookout for that. Hello, my beautiful people. I'm so glad to have you back. Let's just get right into it. Rigging. Either we thought about doing it, or we haven't done it at all yet. There's no in between. I noticed that it tends to be something a lot of people want to do, especially a lot of you with OCs or big animated projects. And I see that it can be considered confusing or scary to some. Have no fear though. As your creative bestie, I am here to help you with my personal Live2D tips. Alright, let's start off with the rigging tips. First off, I have is to find references of things you'd like to rig and then save them. Always take advantage of things like Pinterest, Milano, Notion. They're really great for collecting resources and having them visually laid out to you. You can even just go to the Live2D tag on Twitter and then just bookmark a bunch of things. So helpful because sometimes even I forget how to do things, guys. I'm not perfect. I sometimes forget how to rig hair, for example, and how to get the correct physics for it, which is why I have tutorials saved so I can always just go back to it and I can know what I need to do. And also, in the description, I have a little playlist saved for you of all the resources that I use when it comes to rigging, so look down there for that. Speaking of which, that leads to my next tip. Tutorials. Use them. Don't underestimate them. Don't try to go in blind thinking that you can do everything yourself, because no, you cannot. I know firsthand. Tutorials are just not only great for learning, but they also provide really great motivation. To this day, when I need a pick-me-up when it comes to rigging or anything animation, I watch a couple of tutorials to get me hyped up and in that mood. You don't really lose anything from watching a tutorial or two. And it's also nice to support your fellow Live2D riggers in the community. Be ambitious, but start simple. Starting off with a chibi model or a half body model is a great baseline to start, as if you have a full body model, you'll just be generally overwhelmed with the amount of work and you won't exactly know what to do. Learning isn't a linear process, so you need to keep in mind of your limitations. Something simpler art style wise as well, if you can handle it, of course. Personally, I believe that it's good to build off of those small wins and then gradually work up to something greater. My older models used to be just so much more simple, and I just built that up into something more. Now that we have all that out of the way, we're gonna move on to our rigging tech tips from yours truly. Changing your workspace is so helpful. It gives you a faster workflow, and it's really just going to benefit your rigging process in general. Here's some footage of me organizing my own workspace, and you can even save certain workspaces for different workflows. You can even change your workspace in the animation tab, so the same logic applies there. Just knowing where everything is honestly makes your life so much faster, especially if you use other programs and you sort of make Live2D look similar to it. You'll get more familiar with the tools and memorize where everything is. So it's good to keep those in mind when rigging for long hours on end. Next, we have reflecting parts. Commonly, most models have their left and right side generally the same. So to ease your workflow, most riggers like to copy one part to the other side and then reflect it. Okay, here we are in Live2D Cubism. I'm going to be using one of my puppet rigs as an example. We are going to be duplicating the left arm over here, and we're basically just going to select the parent deformer of everything. Right click, select child objects. This basically selects everything under the parent deformer, and now we have everything. So now what we're gonna do is just Control C, copy and paste, typical command, and now we have a new arm. Before we even think about deselecting from it, we're going to click Reflect, and you should see a menu saying Reflect Settings. What I like to do is anything labeled as X, I click Reflect on that. For example, body X, shoulder XL. We aren't done yet though, because all of the parameters are still linked together. We don't want to move something, we don't want to have something labeled as shoulder left for the right shoulder. So what we're going to do is hit select on our new copied right shoulder. We're going to access the drop down arrow over here, and there should be something that says change. This lets you transfer your keyframes to another parameter. That's basically what we're going to be doing for the parts that we just duplicated. And there we go. We now have an entirely new arm. Everything's rigged, all just right there, already done for us. And that's how easy it is to reflect parts. I think it's good that even new people know how to do this. Honestly, there's really no point in rigging the same part the same way over and over again when you can just flip it. I tend to find this useful for things such as the legs and arms if they're the same, the hair, and the eyes. The temporary deform tool. This tool is just such a lifesaver when it comes to warping certain parts. If the normal deformer tool is intimidating, you can go up to the deformer tab and select temporary warp deformer. Now we have a simpler version of a warp deformer right here. And in the top left corner, you can see that we can select other options for certain warping tools. Great tool overall. I still do recommend learning the actual warp deformer tool though, majority of the time, since that's what you'll be using. But this comes in handy when you need something adjusted in a particular way and you don't want to have to adjust every single gray dot on your screen. Alright, turning rotation deformers into warp deformers. If a part already has a rotation deformer over top of it and you add a warp deformer, it won't actually move the way you want it to. By selecting the transfer to parent button over here, it will actually move the rotation to the warp deformer and you can adjust as needed. If you'd like to rotate something again, you're going to have to repeat the process. Next tip, extended interpolation. Live2D runs off this thing called interpolation. It's basically what fills in the blanks in between your keyframes. However, in certain scenarios when rigging, sometimes this can look pretty weird. When you're rotating with a warp deformer, you sometimes get this weird size changing effect. However, this can be fixed by pressing extended interpolation. It basically adds mini key points to fill in the blanks in between your little green keyframes. The number list over here indicates how much interpolation you'll give to that part. You can just adjust as needed until you get the exact look that you want. I find this to be really useful for the hair, as we don't want that shrinking effect when we're actually rotating the hair itself. Boy, this one might give people a heart attack. This might be a little overwhelming, but my next tip is to read the Live2D manual. Yes, I am aware how long it is. However, there's actually lots of useful tidbits and information. And it's always good to take a look at the program through the developer's eyes, in a sense. You might learn something that you may not know, and I'll leave a link in the description with the manual in case you actually want to check it out. This is actually where I learned that I could export my animations with a transparent background, and at that point I was using the program for 4 years. Take a look at the manual and do study up. Annotate if you have to, and make it cute. Live2D actually has sample models that you can download. You can analyze them and notice how they did certain techniques with their models. I recommend picking up a model that has a similar art style towards yours, so that way you can get a better idea of how to rig certain parts. Although it doesn't hurt to expand your outlook too. These sample models actually give you access to everything. You'll be able to get a better look at what you're getting into. Hello, we're now halfway through the video, so I'm just reminding you to subscribe and stick around if you like what you see. We're now ready to move on to my favorite part of this section, our animation tips. All you people who animate in other softwares, this one's partly for you. Alright friends, first tip. Plan your poses. You need to plan your poses before you even think about actually going in and animating. I'm sorry, I just woke up. Before we start posing, I like to go into the scene name and just change it to just posing. That way we can distinguish our animating scene and our posing scene. And you can change the frame rate to whatever you're choosing. And then I change the default interpolation here. I change parameter over here to step. Step interpolation causes your keyframes to just snap between each other. Like so. And that's perfect for posing. Okay, and we have our finished poses. The first pose starts off with like a simple look to somebody else, as if they're there. Then, you know, they notice the viewer and then look. Simple as that. I won't be animating the entire thing because I just got done animating something else, and that would be but I did apply the same posing method for that animation, and you can see how that translated. It overall just made everything a lot more visual, and I could see how everything would play out and time everything accordingly. Sure, it is pretty easy to just animate straight ahead, brute force it. I do it sometimes too. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you want an exact outcome, if you want that 100% success rate every single time you animate something, plan your poses. I love using the scenes feature for camera angle changes and jump cuts. I also use this to separate my posing from my final animation. When you animate, it's good to keep in mind, okay, when should I use a scene? Where should this end? Where should this cut? It's almost like being a director in a sense. You don't want to be animating everything on a single scene because that would just be really overwhelming. The scenes feature is featured on the left side of your screen by default. By pressing this button over here, you can open up a new scene, give it a name, and you'll have an entirely blank canvas. And there you go, you have two separate scenes that you can now work in. Alternatively, you could duplicate the scene you're working on for a much more faster approach. Do keep in mind that frame rate and interpolation do change once you create a new scene. Unless you copy it, you're gonna have to change it every single time. So don't accidentally go from animating to 30 frames per second to 15 frames per second like I did. Ooh, here's a good one. Animation templates. A lot of people actually don't know about animation templates in Live2D. These are really great for things such as background characters and certain actions such as blinking, hair blowing, and walk cycles, or any other kind of idle animation. Let's make an animation template. This is actually really easy because you just have to animate normally over here. We have our template menu set up. We're gonna make a blinking template, which I find to be the most easiest. So first we just have to animate normally. While you can download and use templates made by other people, it is important to keep in mind that there isn't exactly a community of people making animation templates, and that every model works differently, so do keep that in mind. Your parameter IDs will be saved and baked into your animation template file, so if the parameter IDs do not match, the motion will not transfer over. Do keep that in mind. Baking hair physics. I actually have covered baking hair physics before, as it's pretty easy to explain. Your model should have physics in the physics menu. Live2D uses an input and output system for physics. If your head moves, your hair will move. Your head is the input, and your hair is the output. The animation mode actually takes this into account, which is where the baking hair physics comes in. Go to the animation tab right here and select Bake Physics. It will animate and create physics depending on what your input settings are in the physics menu, and use that as a sort of basis. This not only saves so much time, but it can create some pretty decent results if you don't have the time to manually animate each hair parameter. Finding references for animation can be extremely helpful for animation exercises and character acting. YouTube has so many references for walking, emotions, and fighting animations. I'll also be leaving down a playlist down below of some references that I've used, if you'd like something to animate. We're moving on to our last animation tip, and that's to find your style. Like fashion, the best way to find out your own style is to experiment. I actually went from animating at 30 frames per second on smooth interpolation to doing 15 frames per second, frame by frame, and now I'm currently just doing a mix of the two. God knows I could not do frame by frame animation forever. Not only that, but take a look at some of the animations that other people are making. I always do that and suddenly get a burst of inspiration to just completely change everything about how I animate. That's just my personal general rule of learning animation, is that experimentation is key. It can be kind of a process of trial and error, but so is rigging, and you're still here. We're now on our last section where we go over the just general productivity motivational tips. Ask for help. Yes, I am aware how scary that could be, but suffering in silence is kind of dumb. Hi, this is post-editing Jaden to say that you should absolutely check out the Live2D Discord, because they have help channels and advice forums that you can post in to get feedback on your work, whether it be animation, rigging, technical issues with the program. Great place. Highly recommend it. Link in the description. Why suffer in silence when you can get to your goal faster for a faster cut? Have direction and clarity. I think a lot of people don't know what they're getting themselves into when it comes to model making or animation, thinking it would be easy, and that leads to burnout. Good mindset is important, and having a clear and focused one lets you be open to learning anything, which actually leads to my next tip, and that is be kind and do not rush yourself. Please. Because we all know there is no worse feeling than burnout. I think working with intention and nurturing yourself and taking your time is the best thing you could do for yourself. You can't really go to your computer with zero energy and you feel awful and you feel tired. You were born to create. However, you were not born to create 24/7. I wish somebody told me that, so I'm telling you guys. Start on your project, make it perfect to you, and just come back when you're ready. So that's all the tips and tricks I have for you guys. I had so much fun talking to you. Let me know what you're working on, and let me know what tips you're going to be using on your live 2D journey. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because we're all here to help out. I'll probably answer them if I don't forget. Now, my little announcement. I'm just gonna say it outright. I'm getting a new model. I am so excited. I've been drawing this for like 4 days. I've been drawing this model for like 4 days, and oh my god, it's all coming together, and I'm so excited to show you guys. I'm so excited. It really just feels like everything I've learned has just been paying off. So I'm so excited to show you guys. I'm definitely gonna be making all the content, all the everything, all the good stuff on my rigging journey. I'm just so excited to show you guys. Thank you for being here. Have a great life. Have a great everything.